Hello and welcome to the birth of a new dimension. My name is Aurora. I am a relative newcomer to this physical plane and this earth body. I'm a walk-in. I'm a galactic walk-in, and I'm a visionary artist in that I express the information that I perceive through direct perception, through artwork, and also through music. Now, the artwork that I have been creating for about the past 14 years, when people view it, they often say, that looks like something called sacred geometry. However, the word geometry is not appropriate in describing what these paintings actually depict. So over the course of the years, I have developed a more impeccable description. It is a vibratory language. The word geometry comes from the root word geo and metric, to measure, meaning to measure earth. And it literally was developed for very primitive agriculturalists to divide up their fields and literally measure earth so that they could equally apportion, who was going to get what out of the crop. The paintings that I paint and the music and sounds that I'm going to be sharing here today, these are descriptive of a realm beyond the mere physical. The physical is one layer to the realm. In fact, there are 7 layers, and each layer of reality corresponds with a note on the musical scale, Western musical scale, and with a color of the rainbow. So when we are referring to the physical reality, I have arbitrarily associated that with the color red and the note C. And we're also going to talk today about harmonics and overtones. And this all relates to the idea that these pictures or this information is not sacred geometry. It is the interdimensional vibratory language of color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone. So when we are perceiving with our non-physical higher faculties, the qualities that I listed are just some of the identifying qualities of the energy that we are perceiving. We're speaking now about how we can come up with a language that is common ground between beings that might have radically different sensory apparatuses than we have ourselves. I mean, even on our planet, I can use the rock shrimp as an example. This is a tiny underwater creature that sees in the visible spectrum far beyond what human eyes can see. And if we were to paint a painting and present it to a rock shrimp, they might say that's the ugliest painting I've ever seen, because we are not sensitive in certain color areas where they are very sensitive. So it might be like people who are hearing impaired playing music for people who can actually hear, and the people who can hear are like, I don't know, I'm hearing a lot of wrong notes. So this is the challenge of coming up with an effective way to communicate with beings who might have radically different shaped bodies, radically different types of senses. They might live in a different world and so have to have the different capacity to perceive things in that different world. If you live on a planet where the rain that falls from the sky is actually made of crystallized carbon and is in the form of diamonds, then your system of perception probably won't be exactly the same as the visual eyeballs that developed on Earth, where rain falls as liquid water. And that's just the idea of a physical being on a physical planet. Let's expand now to the idea of a non-physical being in a non-physical dimension who has never experienced rain falling on their face. How to find a common ground with those beings. So the answer is understanding that we have this vibratory language, and that all of these concepts can be depicted as vibration. The paintings that I paint, P.S., if you are on the ucy.tv/FRL homepage, you can see examples of my artwork by going all the way to the left and looking at the at Birth Dimension Twitter feed. You can also go directly to Twitter and just type in at Birth Dimension, or you can go to my website, flyingrainbowlasagne.com, and you can click on the Art tab, and that will allow you to look at some examples of the images that I'm producing, which I initially began creating these images not knowing that I was making the visual representation of harmonic sound waves. My visual sense and capacity to express myself through drawing and painting has been very strong throughout my journey being here over the past 14 years. Music has been a gradual awakening where I had some potential within this body, within the neurology and spiritual aspect and consciousness aspect of the body that has been slowly awakening and slowly coming forward. And as that has grown and those literal neural connections have grown within me, I've come to understand that my paintings are the visual expression of music. And we define music here in this time and place as harmonically structured sound, as opposed to noise. You know, if I just mash my finger on the piano keyboard, we say, that is not music, that is noise. That is not sound waves organized into a pattern. That is randomly occurring sound waves. So all of this is backstory for the announcement that I'm preparing to make a presentation, a multi-sensory experience of both art and music and healing, partnering with a Reiki master and utilizing my original artwork and also the performance of music both on this piano and a brand new instrument that I just got that is tuned to 432 hertz. So first, let me talk about visual light waves and my paintings, then let's get into sound and harmonics, and then I'll play the chakra harmonizer for you. However, I am not certain how it will sound on this microphone. I know that when I listened to the instrument, a recording of it on headphones before I received the actual physical instrument, the recording did not do it justice. It did not give me the feeling of what it actually feels like. When I play the instrument and you're actually in the physical presence of it, it's overwhelming. It's like a sound bath that engulfs you and encompasses you. And the first night after my instrument arrived, I played with it, of course, for many hours, just experimenting with it and having so much fun. And then went to lay down to go to sleep, and I was so energized that I couldn't fall asleep. I was just way too up for that. So I put on headphones and listened to a lot of wonderful music and had wonderful emotional breakthroughs, wonderful musical breakthroughs, that the effect of being in the presence of these perfectly aligned harmonic sound waves has a benevolent impact on your emotions, on your spirituality, on your consciousness, because basically these waves are affecting your chakras in a good, happy way. Right now on the other side of this wall of my studio, there's an apparatus that is affecting my chakras not in a good, happy way. It's called a smart meter. They're just everywhere at this point, and these are to monitor the electric usage of the house, and they act much like a cell phone tower sending Wi-Fi signals on a chain back and forth to PG&E. And those Wi-Fi signals, they are the electromagnetic equivalent of noise. They are not beautifully organized harmonic sound waves or harmonic electromagnetic waves. They are chaotically misarranged, unpleasant, unhappy making waves. So how about before I even get into this little lesson on harmonics, how about I play the chakra harmonizer for you and you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So again, I'm not certain how this is going to sound on the recording and how this particular microphone will pick this up, but I'm just going to go through the notes of the scale from C to C and then allow you to hear the sound that it creates. And some of the things that you will want to listen for are, it's almost a sound of wah, 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 these oscillations. When you hear that, you are hearing overtones. This is the additive amplification of sound waves. So just in the same way that you can have regular light that comes out of like a flashlight beam, spreads out from the source of the light in a cone shape, as opposed to a laser. When a laser emerges from its origin, it stays in one straight line because all of the light waves are arranged coherently. All of the peaks and all of the troughs line up perfectly. And when we do that in sound, what we get is amplification or louder sound. And this instrument, the chakra harmonizer, has each of these, it's set up kind of like a xylophone, if you can envision a set of tubular bells arranged on top of a resonant wooden box. And the tubes are all tuned so that I'm going to use the word again, they harmonize with one another. And that means that the amount of air or atmosphere that each tube displaces nests perfectly in terms of measurement, like physical measurement of space within the structure of the sound waves of the other tubes. Again, usually at this point, if you were here with me in my studio, I would pick up a pen and paper and actually start drawing. And it's a bit of a challenge because I'm here on the radio today. I would draw a picture of a half circle, and then I would divide that half circle in two, and I would draw two smaller circles inside of that half circle. And this is the idea of two sound waves nested harmonically within the larger sound wave. And there's no extra, nothing hanging out the side. The measurements are so perfect that the sound waves fit within one another perfectly. And when the waves mesh perfectly like that, it is analogous to light waves meshing perfectly and making a coherent laser light. In the terms of sound, we begin to hear harmonics and overtones. So overtones are when we get many different smaller notes out of the main note. The main note in this teaching is usually referred to as the fundamental. So the fundamental might be a C. And within that C, if that's the big half circle, there are smaller notes, like the two smaller orange circles that fit inside of it. And those are the C overtones. And when you play the right overtones next to one another, they match up and amplify their sounds, and we end up with these very interesting patterns. So you'll hear oscillations like wah, 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 and you'll also hear purring noises, kind of like prrr. And none of those are sounds that are made by the actual striking of the metal tube. All of those are secondary sounds that are made by the emanations or repercussions of two tubes meeting and interacting. So again, I just want to go through the scale with this as an introduction and give you an idea of what positive and benevolent sound vibrations would feel like to you. So I'm not certain if the microphone is sensitive enough to pick it up, but especially at the end as the notes are fading, you hear a lot of and all of that, all of those are the subtleties, the notes within the notes that we get by perfectly tuning these notes relative to one another. So hold on one moment, brief pause while I save my work here. Okay, now let's get into musical tuning and how harmonics have changed in the 20th century. So the idea of tuning to 432 hertz, first of all, let's define terms. What am I talking about with the frequency measurement of hertz? Hertz literally is a measurement of a waveform, just like I draw these circle-shaped waveforms. Sound can be represented in this way. And the Schumann resonance of our planet Earth is the measurement of the waveform that reflects from the physical Earth surface, like the ground where you plant your tomatoes, and the high level of the atmosphere of Earth, like where it is far too thin to actually breathe, but it is still considered the high outer atmosphere. Energy bounces back and forth between those two surfaces of our planet all the time. It is energy that is incoming from electrical storms. So the Schumann resonance is basically when we strike a bell or when you strike a tube, and it resonates. When lightning strikes Earth, Earth resonates. And the frequency at which she resonates has been measured, and for a long time has been 7.85, and it's usually rounded up to 8. And it fluctuates naturally. If there are more lightning strikes on the plains of Africa on a particular day, then that will change the resonant frequency, and it's normal to do that. So people have also been taking measurements recently, let's say over the past 20 years, and have noted that the resonant frequency of Earth is consistently rising. And they are correlating that with the rising of human consciousness or human awareness. The takeaway of all of this is that if we roughly say that the baseline frequency of Earth, what the planet is tuned to, is 8 hertz. And there's plenty of science done on this, that the two hemispheres of your physical brain work well. They are happy and harmonious, or their brain waves function well when the brain is communicating across the central like the bridge that connects the left and right hemisphere at a frequency of 8 hertz. So when you are trying to study and you put on music like the composer Bach, that music was tuned to and created to be played at 8 hertz, and it helps to create an environment within your brain where your brain waves don't have to fight against one another in order to do what they want to do. So just like light waves that are not coherent are bouncing off of one another, going hither, thither, and yon, going all over, when your mind is subjected to music that is not tuned to this 8 hertz baseline, it's more difficult to think. It is literally disruptive, and it is easier to think and easier to learn when you're listening to music or whatever, being exposed to vibrations that are at the 8 hertz range. And I changed from music to vibrations because there are these wonderful things that you can get. You can either download them or listen to them on YouTube. They're called binaural beats. B-I-N-A-U-R-A-L, as in bi, like the prefix for two, and oral for your ears. And these are computer programs of abstract beats that are slightly different from the left side and the right side. And the idea is that the slight differences that your right ear and your left ear hears helps to regulate and synchronize the two hemispheres of your brain. And some people swear by these as tools for either studying and introspection and meditation or astral travel and getting out of the body. And dependent upon what frequency you use, they can indeed be very effective. Well, ancient people knew about this also. Ancient people knew about the transformative and transportive qualities of music. And even, I bring up Bach and like the Baroque composers, people of that era also definitely understood the transportive and transformative elements of music and sound, because most of music was devotional. most of it was meant to bring listeners into a state of being enraptured, closer to the divine. And they were, the music was presented in a soaring, harmonic, I keep using that word, a space that is designed to, like an amphitheater, to collect and amplify sound. This is what cathedrals are. The whole experience of going to a cathedral and hearing music played there, like on a grand pipe organ, or many perfectly tuned voices singing together, this is all about changing one's emotional state. So, and I will tell you, when I play the chakra harmonizer, as I told you from my little anecdote, it puts me into a wonderfully uplifted emotional state. I was so uplifted that first night, I couldn't even fall asleep. I was so excited and happy. And even just playing a simple scale, as I did before, and standing in front of it, I immediately feel energy and uplift, like that first sip of coffee in the morning. It's like, that is just wonderful. So basically, the A note. If you're not familiar with music, let's do this. So the scale, beginning with C. C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So we've got, technically these are 7 notes. And 7 is not an octave, because octave means 8. So the 8 comes from the next C. So this is like saying we start off with red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and then we go back to red. Except in our chakra system, we don't circle back to red. We consider that to be white light, or the combination of all of the other chakras combined up together. And when I speak about ascension and exiting the wormhole of this quantum level of reality, quantum meaning a packet that cannot be divided further, when we get to the next level, that is the beginning of the next level. So the final note of this octave becomes the first note of the next octave. But you must understand that I'm playing an electric piano, so I do not have control over its tuning. And this is the A note right here. And since World War II, the A note has been tuned to the frequency of 440 hertz. And you can tell that that is different than my new instrument, where I told you it is tuned to 432 hertz. So, pardon me, hold on one second. This is A on my piano, 440. And this is A on my new instrument, tuned to 432. So the difference might not be that discernible to your ear. The difference is definitely discernible to, tuning programs that pick it up. You know, you can get all these wonderful programs now to exactly tune your instrument. However, it is very discernible to your emotional state. And the reason for this is why does music have an effect on our emotional state? Let's begin with that basic question and presumption. Music is used in movies presently in order to underscore the emotional state of what the characters are experiencing. So happy music in the background, something fun and happy is happening. And then, of course, scary dirge-like music. You think something bad is coming. And it's not just a question of where on the scale in terms of whether it is a high note or a low note. Like, low notes do not always fill us with dread or sorrow. Mostly, this is the emotional impact of frequency on our chakras. So, composers who score for movies have learned how to manipulate people's emotions by playing the right notes. If I want to make people happy during a love scene, I play certain notes or certain combinations of notes. If I want to make people feel dread while there's a car chase and something bad is going to happen, then I play a different set of notes. This is information that the Catholic Church has had access to for thousands of years. It is the idea of the solfeggio arpeggio. This is a set of notes that was held in secret by the monks that used to chant in the Middle Ages. A set of notes that brings the listener into a divine state. And now it is common knowledge, but for many years it was secret, hidden lore that was not shared freely with other people. And it is understandable why the Catholic Church would not want to freely disseminate the tools for emotional manipulation that it was using. And not only for a positive emotional manipulation, but, to know which notes to play on the pipe organ to make people feel afraid. Like, be afraid, you're going to hell, and now be exalted, you're going to heaven. So basically, your DNA is heavily affected by vibration. And emotions are one aspect of the vibration that are affecting your DNA. So music and, of course, visual arts. When people look at my artwork, they feel uplifted. People have had emotional awakenings from looking at the patterns contained within my artwork. Here is a good example. A lovely person has been redesigning my website, and in order to do so, she had to look at a lot of my artwork all day long for many days in a row. And at the end of that week, she said, I really feel like your artwork is changing me on a deep internal level. When I close my eyes to do my yoga, I see it inside of me. And I consider that to be like the best, that's like, the best award, or like the best success, the best peak, because that is what my artwork is intended to do. It is intended to bring the viewer into an ascended state, or closer to their own divinity, or more connected to the source. So the reason why I got this beautiful, lovely new instrument is I'm putting together a multi-sensory presentation within the next couple of months that is going to be a live performance of music using the new musical instrument, and a display of my artwork, and partnering with a Reiki master to first give backstory, as I'm doing now, and give it food for your mind, lasagna for your mind to chew on, and then bathe everyone in sound waves, and then bathe everyone in Reiki in order to cause profound changes. It is basically like getting a DNA upgrade. The smart meters outside of our house, and all of the cell phone towers, and radiation that is emitted from fluorescent lights, all of those are the negative, chaotic noise that is out there in terms of vibration. When you voluntarily subject yourself to something like Reiki, it's healing energy, that is like subjecting yourself to beautiful music. And our body and our spirit and our emotions begin to respond to that beautiful music. And I said that music affects emotions, emotions affect one's DNA. And your DNA is a bridge of light between the events, the potential events of the non-physical, uncollapsed realm of waveforms, and the realm of experience. If you can change the structure or the way that your DNA is dancing, change the vibratory rate and pattern of your DNA, you can occupy new timelines that you would not have been able to occupy previously. So right now, most people are under the delusion that magic isn't real. They've been given that programming, and it's a lie. And it prevents most people from being on a timeline where something magical is witnessed. Like a person flying through the sky, or an object magically, flying through the sky without the aid of an aeroplane or a helicopter, just a human flying through the sky, or any kind of magical occurrence, a thing that pops into reality inexplicably or pops out of reality inexplicably. This materialistic, objective materialism, rational mind programming, it is not truth. It's not the truth of reality. It is just one way of perceiving reality. And when we program people with that one way of perceiving, we literally make it so that they cannot occupy timelines where things that happen that are magical occur. Many people on this timeline here, where magical things don't happen, have difficulty even imagining magical things. Like the idea that in order for the stones of Stonehenge to get to their present day location, the legend says that Merlin spoke to them or sang to them, and that the stones walked into place. They walked there. They moved themselves there. To most people in this time and place, the idea of a magical occurrence like that, they can't even imagine it. It's a fairy tale. It's something they can't even conceive of or think about. And that's all programming. That is all programming that keeps a person on this particular timeline where stones cannot walk across the landscape and move themselves into formations. So many different things conspire to keep you out of the magical reality, and part of it is programming of what is real and what is not real, and what is allowed and what is not allowed, and some of it is the chaotic vibrations that we are surrounded with. Because I will tell you, I felt such a profound difference in the vibrations when I went to a place called Fern Canyon, which is really off the beaten track, but a lot of people go there because it's so beautiful here in Northern California. And basically, it's a sheltered place, and we were protected from Wi-Fi signals and all sorts of things like that. And there's just all of these beautiful ferns that grow. And when I was there, I felt so naturally uplifted. I felt as good as I feel when I'm standing in front of my chakra harmonizer and, the tubes are vibrating and I'm just being completely bathed in sound. And I understood I didn't have to contend with the chaotic uncontrolled vibrations that I am usually subjected to. That being in Fern Canyon, I was able to just breathe freely without impediment and not have to compensate for all of these chaotic signals that are usually flying about. So yes, Virginia, there is a conspiracy to reduce consciousness. And now we're getting into the idea of tuning to 432 versus 440. So music in the ancient realm, we are talking prehistory and into ancient Greece. There are evidences of musical instruments tuned to 432 hertz. And the significance of 432 is that it is a number that is comfortable being divided by 8. And I told you that the Schumann resonance, the resonant frequency of our planet, we round up to 8. And when we listen to music that is tuned to numbers that are easily divisible by 8, it sounds pretty to our ear. Because let's say if I divide 16 by 8, I end up with 2. It's a beautiful whole number. You can tell from my voice. It's like, oh, I love whole numbers. I want to hug them. It's like when I make my paintings, when circles fit together perfectly, it is because the whole numbers fit and there's no extra, there's no fraction hanging over the edge. If there was a fraction, if it was a circle that's 2 1/4 inches, then the circles would not fit together perfectly. So the idea is, when we tune to the A note to 432, which is this right here, 432 is has a lovely relationship to the number 8, and our body and our emotional state doesn't have to fight against the vibration that we are hearing in order to get to a state of uplift. Verdi, the composer, tuned his opera, or one of his most famous operas, to 432, the A note, because he found it was easier for his opera singers to hit the high notes when he tuned to 432. And all of this makes sense because you know something? You are a part of the planet upon which you reside. And just like the sacred geometry, it's appropriate to call it geometry here because we're talking about measuring the planet, what we see in the evidence of the nautilus shell, or the perfect arrangement of spirals of seeds around a sunflower head or something like that. These are the evidences of perfect forms in our physical cellular body. And our larynx and vocal cords, in order to make the notes that we sing, they need to make these kind of circular shapes. And it's easier to make the shapes that you need to make to tune to 432 hertz than to tune to 440 hertz. Basically, it's easier. You're working with the equipment that Earth gave you when you tune to 432 as opposed to working against it. So there is a historical precedent of ancient Greece, deep antiquity, and these are like stone flutes and other like percussion instruments that have been unearthed that people are able to say this is clearly tuned to 432. We're not talking about a string instrument where there's some question about what the string would have been tuned to. However, and Verdi's opera. So in World War II, Hitler's propaganda minister decided that all music in Germany would be tuned to 440 hertz for the A. And they were very conscious of what they were doing in terms of esoteric symbolism, the occult, and just like the Catholic Church, how to use notes that make people feel scary to make them emotionally controlled. So the music of the Third Reich was intended to emotionally control the population, and a lot of it was done in order to bring up, support for war and support for militarism. And after World War II, the standard of 440A being the tuning for the world, the symphonic world, the world of concerts and symphonies, became the standard. And this was promoted by the Rockefeller Foundation in our own country and across Europe. Yes, this is intentional. This was intentionally designed to reduce consciousness. So we have changed in our world from, at the time of the Baroque composers, music that was designed to uplift and bring you into tune and make you feel the divine and bring you closer to the divine. And that level of music was really only offered to the elites and was only available to the masses in a very limited sense, on special occasions only. So fancy people wearing powdered wigs and perfume could afford to go to a symphony or to go to an opera and be bathed in that music, but a regular peasant pushing a wheelbarrow is like just trying to find a potato to eat. They don't get to hear that music, and they only get to hear music like that maybe on Christmas Day in a church on a special occasion. So that level of music and music creation has now been reduced and diluted and dumbed down to the point where music is so freely available, it's everywhere. Music is playing in the background all the time. It's not something that you only hear on a special occasion. It's something that you're constantly flooded with. And in order to reduce consciousness, the quality of the music that you're flooded with is severely reduced. So, for example, the music that we hear in an elevator, it's literally called elevator music, and it's meant to be music that distracts your consciousness and fades into the background, or music that's on the speakers in a supermarket or a place where you're shopping. This is all music that is just meant to fill time and space, and it's not meant to really be focused on or listened to. It's just a distraction in the background. And it's ironic that music has been intended to be a force for lowering consciousness, but despite that effort, what we really see after World War II is music being used as a tool for raising consciousness or consciousness expansion. Like after World War II, we have the explosion of rock and roll was a rebellion against the constricted conservative social values. So the idea was the music is supposed to make people less aware and reduce their consciousness, and instead the music is making them want to change the world. And I'm talking about rock and roll even as it went into the 60s and the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and even punk. Punk had incredible energy of revolution and to change the world, and all of that music was tuned to 440 hertz. So we cannot say that it had the intended effect, but we can say that when we listen to music tuned to 440, here's the real problem. Moving up the scale is no problem because this is middle C. When we start at middle C, in order to make the notes that are higher, we are adding and multiplying. When we add and multiply, there's no problem. We're not getting those pesky fractions. Everything is an integer. We could multiply 7 times 3 or 8 times 3 or 9 times 3. We're always going to end up with a whole number. But if I divide 9 by 3, I get a nice, beautiful whole number. How about if I divide 8 by 3? Not a nice, beautiful number. How about if I divide 7 by 3? Also not a nice, beautiful whole number. So the problems happen when we start from middle C and we begin to divide down the scale. Some of those lower notes end up not sounding very pretty on my piano, because my piano is not tuned to 432, it's tuned to 440. And the reason for that is the sound waves do not nest perfectly harmonically. We might have, imagine a 4-inch circle that is supposed to have two 2-inch circles inside of it. And instead of that, what we have are two 2.3-inch circles. And you say, Aurora, that doesn't work because those 2 circles will not fit inside of this larger circle. And I say, you are correct. And your ear can hear that. And that is I want to say boulder you're pushing up a hill. The thing that you are working against when you are listening to music that is tuned to 440 hertz. It is the resistance that you are having to work on a scale that is not comfortable to your own natural tuning, okay? So now let's get into the chakra harmonizer and how this positively affects you. So this instrument is made much like the Tibetan singing bowls. The singing bowls of the Far East, these have been made not in a machined way. They're made very intuitively. And the idea is that when you strike them around the edge, I have some around the room, I just don't want to get up and get them, then they make these harmonic tones, a single fundamental with many notes inside of it. And if they have been made well, then they have 7 overtones, and it activates or gives good energy to each one of your chakras. So this instrument has been made by a person who studied the Tibetan bowls and learned about their frequencies and learned about how positive the impact that those frequencies can have. And it's all about the relationship of notes on the scale. It's not about just taking a note and that's just a note. It's not that it is in tune or out of tune. All of the idea of being in tune or out of tune is relative to what you are comparing it to. So if we were to use color as an example, we can say, this color violet, does it go? Does it match? Does it look good? We can't tell. It's only one color. One color is beautiful no matter what. But how about if I put it next to this blue? If I put it next to this yellow? If I put it next to this green? Then we begin to say, do these 2 colors go? Are they pleasing together? And this is the question of harmonics. So the first thing I'm going to do, I did a little bit before. I'm going to play the 2 C notes, the low C and the high C, and you're going to hear these oscillations that tell us that the notes are nesting together perfectly. And hold on one second, I got to put this down. Okay, get ready. So I think you could probably hear pretty easily that tells us that those 2 notes are perfectly tuned and that they are nesting together perfectly. Now I'm going to just dampen that so that you don't hear it. Now listen to what happens when I play the C and the high B. And I'm hoping that the microphone will pick it up, that you'll hear this kind of purring sound. Maybe I can move it a little bit closer to the microphone. There we go. So that very high-pitched purring sound, that is the end result of the harmonics of these 2 notes being played together. This is C, B. And the reason why that combination of notes makes that little purring sound, but not this combination. But that one makes a nice wah, wah, wah. And the reason why those two notes do not make the purring sound has everything to do with the way that air or atmosphere is being displaced by the tubes as they nest next to one another. So I don't know if you can envision this, but these are horizontal tubes. When they are struck with a mallet, they create transverse waves, these waves that emanate outward, and they are affecting the tube next to one another. So basically, when I play each one of these notes here, what I'm playing are the white keys on the piano here. These, if in case you do not know, in case you're from another planet, I have never seen a piano keyboard. Piano keyboards have both white and black keys, and the white keys are the regular notes, and the black keys are the sharps and flats. Hold on one moment, please. So, okay, that is just the basic octave, and within that octave, there are the sharps and flats. Okay, those black notes on the chakra harmonizer, they are implied. So the tubes are the white keys, and when they are struck, the additive combinations of the sound waves create the sounds that are ordinarily made by the black keys. So when I hit all of these notes on this instrument, I am playing the full octave, because not only am I playing all of the 8 notes that are like the white keys, the music of the black notes comes up as the overtones. So I know, you know something? Sometimes it feels so cumbersome to use language to explain and describe what's happening. It is so much easier to draw it visually, that I hope your ear can hear it. So I'm going to go up the scale again and understand that when you're hearing an individual note, like that's the C, and here's the D, and when I play them both together, there is a D flat or a C sharp in there. So I'm going to play all of the notes, and I hope that the microphone will pick it up and that you'll be able to hear this. Okay, here we go. So that contains all of the notes that this does. There you go. And now I'll do a little bit of overtone singing, because this will be part of the presentation. This is very ancient, and it is the idea that our voice also creates overtones. It's like, your voice is the primary instrument. Before we even created stone flutes and other things like that, we used our voice in order to make music. So the primary note is the fundamental. That's like, the note. And then inside of that note, there are many other notes. And you'll hear them as like a high-pitched whistling that might go like do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. But you'll hear it separate from the other notes. So I'll just demonstrate this with my voice. So the drone is one note, that's the fundamental, and the is the overtones. And this is ancient Tuvan throat singing from the Far East, and some of the instruments that are created, like the Tibetan bowls, are the understanding that resonant harmonic frequencies can not only bring you into an altered state, like changing your emotions and your spirit, your feeling of your spirituality and your connection to earth, can also have an incredibly profound and positive impact on the cellular structure of your body. Just like the red blood cells of your body, the physical cells are affected by the waves that we are subjected to. Very basic science experiment that you can do, that this is like for kids also in school. try to sprout some seeds in a little dish of soil on top of your Wi-Fi router. You'll find that it won't work. And it's because the waves that are emitted by the Wi-Fi router are too disruptive to the nascent life force energy of a seed to be able to allow it to grow. And then you can also say, how far away do you have to be from the Wi-Fi router in order to effectively sprout seeds? And you can, it drops off logarithmically, 1 foot, maybe not 2 feet, maybe 3 feet, getting a lot better. And then by the time you're about 6 feet away, it's much, much better. And so this is the idea that chaotic waves have a negative impact on the physical cellular structure, and that well-formed, organized, well-structured waves have a positive impact on the physical cellular structure and also on your timeline. Your emotional state is essentially what places you on a timeline. Let's use putting up shelves as the example. Same wall, same shelf, same hammer, same nails, but two divergent emotional states. One where a person is happy, calm, and peaceful. One where a person is extremely agitated and frustrated. And the agitated and frustrated person simply cannot get the shelves up. The project won't work and they're cursing a storm. And the other person, happy, calm, and peaceful, boom, 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 the nails go in straight, and the project is done in 5 minutes. The difference between those two experiences is not a difference in the rules of physics. It's not a difference in the rules of friction or, whether your power tools work or any kind of gravity. Nothing like that changed. The only change was the attitude of the user, the utilizer of the tools. And the attitude that is created by your emotional state, by your spiritual trajectory, and by essentially the dance pattern that your genes are performing. Society has taught us very consistently, or has taught members of itself very consistently, that being agitated is synonymous with being a good person. Wait, brief pause here. Society has really taught people that you are a good person and you are a responsible person if you feel agitation and anxiety and concern and discomfort about certain things, about anything. Like if you see a kid running with scissors and you feel like, oh no, something bad is going to happen, that kid's going to fall and hurt themselves, or any kind of thing like that. And it is good to be protective and responsible and care about living creatures. The challenge is that there is an impending disaster everywhere you look. It is the interpretation of reality. You can look at anything in reality and say, oh no, there is cause for concern. And the feeling of being submerged constantly within a sense of concern makes it not possible to be on some of the timelines that are about magic. Just like rational skepticism makes it not possible to observe and experience certain events, so too does constant vigilance and anxiety and a sense of hyper-responsibility make it not possible to occupy certain timelines that have to do with going with the flow and surrendering and being enmeshed within a partnership of larger consciousness. And again, I'm not advocating that we all throw up our hands and absolve ourselves of all responsibility and say, not my job. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, like, if you read the news in the morning, very little of what you read about is your responsibility. I'm guessing, unless you're like Hillary Clinton or something, that very little of what you read on the news is about your responsibility or something that you have to act or say something in order to improve. However, subjecting yourself to those cares and concerns changes your frequency. It changes your emotional state. I'm saying this to you, but I'm really saying from my experience, when I read the news in the morning, it changes my emotional state and it takes me away from that sense of being happy, calm, and peaceful. And on those timelines, when I'm happy, calm, and peaceful, really anything can happen. Any good thing can happen. The times when I have had really good, wonderful turnarounds in my health or in finances or in creativity have happened because I believed and held the space for a positive new thing to happen and come along. And if I never believed in it or never considered or imagined that it could happen, those new things never could have happened. So if, like, to use health as an example, if I was feeling ill and I never could have imagined that going and getting Reiki energy, a Reiki session, could help me, then I would never have gotten onto those timelines and I would not be now experiencing improved health. It has to do with if you believe something is possible. Imagination and belief, these are like the most powerful tools that we have, or it's like your strongest muscles. And of course, people who structure society have hijacked those muscles or hijacked those creative capacities within you, within everyone, and used them for their own convenience. But this is all changing. So first of all, there is a movement to change symphonic tuning from 440 hertz to 432 hertz. There's also a great deal of many discussions in the musical realm about what's the right tuning, because some people feel that 444 hertz is actually the right tuning. And my answer would be that the right tuning is one that gives you the right emotional state. It's not just that the numbers work out and the calculations work out, it's also that it sounds good to you. Because if I make a painting and I say, I made this painting by calculation, this red is calculated to look beautiful, and you look at it and you say, yes, but I feel that it looks ugly when I look at it, then the painting is not a success. So the whole idea is that art, when it is in its correct format, and music, when it is in its correct format, can be transportive, can be uplifting, can be transformational, can bring you literally onto a new timeline. I don't know if you've ever had the experience of like going to a live concert or going to an opera or a symphony, but you can walk out of there really feeling like you are a changed person. And I, bathing myself in the vibrations from this instrument, and now I do it just a few sessions a day, not hours a day, because it really has a huge impact. I feel wonderful, positive internal changes. One of the internal changes is a greater appreciation of rhythm in music. And now I will sit and just listen with headphones to like the drumming of a jazz song and understand the non-verbal communication that is just coming through in rhythm. It's amazing what happens when we turn off our verbalized mind, the types of perceptions that we can have when we just focus on observing, feeling, sensing, and not so much about thinking, even though I understand that this is a lot of speaking and a lot of thinking. Thank you for joining me for this birth of a new dimension, and let us continue to tune the instruments of our bodies so that we are good musicians for the cosmic symphony. Thank you.